YouTube channel, and Susan has been doing a great job of posting the recent ones on there. So if we have the files, we'll do something with them. And if you're okay to make that recording, maybe you have more options, because I think this is your Zoom, so that might give you more options to record in different ways.
It's recording now, so I will make sure that we get a copy of that.
Fantastic.
Too. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you again. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is so cool to see so many of you tonight. I always wonder, like Susan said, after work, what are we going to get, So Robert, my producer, I want to introduce him. Rob, if you'll come on off mute for a minute. Rob is my producer. Robert Lessinger, he is a Scrum Master. He is also certified as a coach, and he's looking for work. So, so always put that out there. This is always a friendly group to try to, network with. So Rob, is there anything you want to share tonight?
Well, apart from what Karen mentioned, I'm also a certified Agile team facilitator and a Kanban team practitioner as well. And I'm also currently in the process of getting my ICF ACC professional coaching credential. So I'm super excited about that. I do need hours. So since this is a friendly space, I'm going to throw it out there. If any of you would like some practice coaching so that I can get my hours, or even barter coaching if you are a coach, go ahead and pay me and let's set something up. So with that, I have nothing else other than I'm excited to watch you guys learn tonight and learn with you.
Awesome.
Hey, Robert, you know what you should share? Your LinkedIn profile.
That is
put
true.
That URL in the chat.
Yes.
And everyone else, you should do the same if you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Let's all connect. Let's make our network better connected.
Awesome. All right. So I've just put the Miro board into the chat for you all to join me. I am going to go ahead and do a little bit of screen sharing, and then I will kill the screen share when it comes time to talk about our breakout rooms. We are going to do a couple of breakout rooms tonight. I have actually way more exercise boards on here than is needed, but that's okay. We'll have some fun with this. So this is tonight. Who am I? This is me. That's way too much to go through, so I don't like to put the spotlight on me. So let's immediately go to metrics, schmetrics. Why do we have to do them, right? And they're so frustrating, and managers like to use them as battering rams and a host of other things. And so this will be some fun for us tonight, I hope. So the first thing that we're going to do is assure you that my goal tonight is to rattle your cages. It is to rattle your thoughts on metrics. It's to get you to start thinking, wait, what? And what is the value of that metric? Is it really serving us any good? And can it be gamed, right? Because metrics can be gamed. And I've got a couple of fun stories to share with you tonight about that. I used to say, oh, I've got the worst luck with teams. And now it's like, I've got the best luck with teams to give me all these stories for the future. So it's all about the way that you look at it. So let's go ahead and move into the famed spotlight metric. And what I'd like for you to do is there's sticky notes below. I would like for you to grab a sticky note below, drag it up on top, and let's talk about your thoughts about the famed stoplight metric. And share as many thoughts as you want. The good, the bad, the ugly, they are all invited to make an appearance here tonight. I'll stop share while you're doing that. Is everybody into the Miro board okay? You go, Paul, in there. Awesome.
Can you share that Miro board one more time, please? I don't know if I...
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Karen, I got some feedback in chat. Are you able to move a bit closer to the microphone?
I am.
Awesome, thank you.
Is this a little bit better?
Sounds better to me.
Okay.
Let me know in chat if that has improved.
Okay, be great. So we're starting to see some sticky notes. That's awesome. One-dimensional watermelon results. I've got to hear more about that. Outperforming used as punishment, right? The only metric to measure cycle time is cycle time, okay. Good for at a glance info, no context, okay. Good. Looks like we've still got a couple more on there. To set a target, to meet targets, okay. Colors are familiar to all. The thing that I find interesting about the red, yellow, and green lights is every project starts out green, right? And then all of a sudden, without warning, it's red. It moves immediately into red. And I remember a project manager a long time ago telling me that she used to liken the stoplights with the yellow as the warning that somebody was coming for her tail end, and the red was what it looked like when they were done. So there's also this like horrible feeling that comes along with them, right? If a team sees, oh God, we're moving red, we're moving red. So think about the number of times that you've been in a scenario and somebody says, hurry up, it's too slow, we've got to move faster. Does that not like kind of freak you out a little bit and cause you to kind of get a little disrupted, and you have to kind of stop and think, wait, what are we doing now? And how do we move faster? And I was going as fast as I could, you know? So there's, you know, some emotional icky tied with the red, yellow, and green stoplights. So we've got some other here. Who wrote watermelon results? I got to hear this. I need to know what this is.
Yeah, that's me, Karen.
Yeah, go Paul.
It's good, Paul. Hey, actually, I'm plagiarizing somebody else, my friend Toby. It's about, the analogy is watermelon. It's green on the outside, but when you cut it open, it's red on the inside. So basically, you know, if you look at the overall red, yellow status, you rarely see yellow or red. You basically see green all over. But if you take a single line item and get into the details, and that's what I put in terms of the single dimension as well, you know, it's never green, unfortunately, because there are so many, you know, layers to it.
Right. The thing that I've always found interesting about the stoplight is you start talking about the projects at a project status meeting, and you're talking with executives, and they're like, yeah, okay, green, okay, green, okay, green. They don't want to know how you got green, right? Everybody just wants to know what's happening with red. Why are you yellow? You projected this was going to be fine. And so they lose complete context all the way around it. And there's such an opportunity to talk about what great things teams are doing when it's green, right? And let's celebrate those kind of things so that managers can start to understand there's a lot of work that goes into what an agile team does, even what a waterfall team does. There's a lot of work that goes into it, right? So we've got inflexible, we have well used in DevOps, people relate to it easily, true, stale, love that. And still loving that used as punishment. So let's go ahead and move into our next one. And I'm on frame 5 now. I'm gonna call you all to follow me, bring everybody to me. So what I'd like for you to do next is let's go ahead and double click on a white sticky note below, these guys right here, and start typing the metric that folks in your organization are continuing to rely on. Heck, you can even use the Agile metrics if you want, okay? And let's try to keep one sticky per note, please, or one metric per note, please. And just leave them right where they are for right now, okay? And for those of you that haven't grabbed a sticky, what are some of your favorites? Let's go ahead and talk about those while people are typing. Somebody's trying to take away the curtain. Susan, what's your favorite one?
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, this is not an area that I have dived into really. So I am still stuck using velocity and how many sprints are left until our release, and how many story points are in that sprint. And I am in a culture where we have those red, yellow, green dashboards. So I know this is not the way.
That's cool. All right. It looks like we've got some people that have grabbed some things. So now I'm going to pull the curtains back. We're going to go into 3 breakout rooms. Rob, if you would set those up for me, please. And generate them automatically. Arti, don't move it yet. So what we're going to do is we are going to choose 2 metrics above. You can grab them right now if you want before somebody else does, but you have no guarantee which breakout room you're going to be in. So you might get it, you might not. Choose 2 metrics to explore and place the white sticky notes that you've just typed on top of these ones that say cover with this sticky note metric. And then let's go ahead and then begin to explore in your breakout rooms. We'll begin to explore on the blue stickies. Why are these things valuable? Why are people using them? What information do you get out of them? Okay. And so let's go ahead and are there any questions about the breakout rooms? Has everybody gone in one before? All good. I'm seeing some shaking head of head yeses. Okay. All right, cool. So Rob, if the breakout rooms are ready to go, let's go ahead and send folks in there for, let's give them 5 minutes and then we'll check on them.
And what's our conversation?
Your conversation is to identify, explain what information those metrics are useful for. So you've got the burn down rate on the first one here. Whoever gets into room 1, they'll start typing on that sticky note. What information is this useful for? What does it tell? Why do we consider it value? And we will go with 5 minutes and I will start the timer once everybody hits into the breakout rooms. I'm going to go ahead and go into breakout room 1. I'll be back. So I'm going to put the recording on pause. So what did you all think of the exercise? What did you learn? Let's hear somebody from room 1. Listen, I've got some students on here tonight, and I know, you guys know, I have infinite patience to wait for a volunteer.
Are we able to tell them who is in room 1? We are not, but room 1 is, it looks like you did.
I can actually tell who's in room 1.
Oh,
Who's
cool.
in room 1? Are we in room 1?
No, so we're in the main room right now. Those who were in room 1 were Artie, Alicia, Amy, Dexter, Debbie, Jensen, Gopal, Julie, Logan, Michael, Ray, Ron, and Steven.
I will say we concluded, we talked only about burn down charts. That was our only metric that was on the board when we started.
A kayak out on one of the community's lakes.
And we did, and we early concluded to only use them for burning down sprints, not burning down longer times than that. Although Amy is using it for longer than that, and I don't know that she was in agreement with that.
All right, awesome. And let's hear from room 2. Who from room 2 would like to go and tell me one of yours? Just pick one.
I'm going to nominate someone other than me, such as Cesar or David or Rob.
Not it.
Okay.
David?
Hey, yeah, I thought he said okay. Caesar. Caesar. Let's see. Yeah, we talked about cycle time, and we talked about velocity for on behalf of season, and we're trying to figure out what would be an alternative point that captures everything. That's really what velocity does. So that was a question going to be after this. So hopefully we can get some information from you, Karen. Cycle time was pretty straightforward. You're measuring from either from the beginning to the end or the different stages throughout. So that's a good measurement that I particularly like and some of the team members like. Season, do we have another one? It's only those two,
You
right?
got it.
Yeah, so that was it.
Cool, thank you. And who from room 3 would like to share one of theirs?
I can do it. This is JJ. So we have cycle time and velocity. And I'll just say it seemed like with velocity was basically to really understand how, what the team's performance is and what they're delivering. And also to be careful of, gaming the numbers. It's kind of, how you can produce, as you were saying earlier, Karen, in terms of, it's real easy to get caught up in trying to make the numbers better because if the team gets enough pressure. So it's really getting the data, making sure you're getting the right data and that you're having those conversations but that's kind of our.
That's definitely Season. She does that.
Well, it's funny because when you talk about, velocity and you talk about, management maybe saying we need to improve our velocity. No problem, right? My 3 just became a 5. My 5 just became an 8. You need to produce more work. No problem. My 3 just became a 5. My 5 just became an 8. I can continue to work the same amount and give you less value, right, for what you think you're getting. Suddenly the work becomes more difficult. Not in every
The increase in velocity doesn't that mean the increase in pay?
Yeah, no, see, they haven't figured that part out yet. So let's go ahead, and I want to tell you a quick story about Ed, and I'm going to call you all to me. Ed is a brilliant Agile senior developer, and these are Ed's friends. So Ed, he likes coffee, as you can see. And our topic of Ed's story is mandated developer metrics. So I was at a client site and they had a new development team manager. And he held a meeting to break up a team of contracted developers, testers, UI, UX folks. He wanted to break them into 3. Now this team was, I will say that in my whole career, it was an exception to the rule of large teams. We met with them, a couple of coaches and I, and we asked them, how are you communicating? What's getting in your way? And we actually want to write a white paper on them because they had figured out how to do this. They'd figured out the right way to work together. So when this manager came in and said, we are going to bust you guys up and we're going to bust it up in this order. I'd already met with the Scrum Masters because we knew this was coming. And so the Scrum Masters were like, well, what do we do? And I said, well, what do you want to do? And they said, well, we want to stay together. And I said, so how do you communicate that, right? So they put together a pitch. It didn't work. This senior manager said, we're going to split you guys up, and this is how we're splitting you up into 3 teams. So, but that's a story for another time, right? And so what I wanted to introduce to you about Ed and his friends is at the end of this meeting, the manager asked, are there any questions from the team? And I was sitting all the way down, just kind of paint the picture, in person, conference room, seats 30 people. And I'm sitting all the way down at one end, and on the other side, far opposite end, is this new manager. So we were within eyesight. Ed was about 6 developers down from me. And I hear Ed say, well, yeah, I've got a question. And so the manager, he kind of sits up and he's like, yeah, okay, great, awesome, And he says, we've actually heard that you're going to implement developer metrics, starting with number of commits. Is that right? And the manager kind of looked real nervous and he said, where'd you hear that, right? And so Ed says, well, he said, it really kind of doesn't matter where we heard it. He goes, the fact of the matter is we heard it. Is it true? and why are you doing this? And so the manager says, well, yeah, I mean, it's true. And he said, but I'm doing it because, and he's so super nervous. I'm, there's been experiences in my past where I find this to be a helpful metric. And Ed, who is very curious and very hipsterish, he says, oh, cool. He goes, awesome. Can you help us understand how this is helpful to you? And he goes, well, I mean, yeah. He goes, I mean, in the past, I can tell, who's working hard and who's not working hard. And it helps me know who to take action on. And you guys are fine. You guys are fine. You're going to be fine. You'll get the right number in. And Ed says, you know what? He goes, I am so glad you mentioned that. He said, because you know what? You're right. We are going to get that number in. We're going to do that for you. We're going to make you look good. He said, so this is so cool. I'm so excited about this. And he said, we just want you to know. And he called him by name. And he said that we're here to help you, dude. We are so here to help you. We are in your camp. And he goes, we're going to make this happen for you. And I'm like, to the point where you're looking down at your phone going, somebody send me a text for God's sake, And I kind of peeked up and I looked at the manager, and the manager looks at me and he goes, what's happening? And I go, well, what do you think is happening? And he goes, this feels a little mutiny-ish. And I went, you're probably spot on, and this is like 30 feet. And I said, guys, be gentle with him, okay? And they were like, oh, of course, we're going to be so gentle with him. It's good. And so he leans across, this Ed, he leans across, and he's probably about, I'm going to go with about 5 feet away from the manager. And he leans all the way across with his long arm, and he starts patting the table. He goes, look at, this is how this is going to go. He goes, see, he goes, I know you're confused. You're wondering how we're going to make this metric. And he goes, I'm here to tell you. He goes, but I need to know you're paying attention. He's okay. I'm paying attention. And he's looking at me nervously, and I'm like, So he said, this is how it works. He said, I get to work around 8:15 or so. And he said, I arrive parched. I need some coffee. I'm parched. Do you understand, dude? And he goes, yeah, okay, you're parched. And he goes, I've got my friend here. And he puts his arm around the next developer, and he said, and my friend is parched too. Wouldn't you just know? And he said, so what we're going to do is we're going to go make a cup of coffee in the Keurig. And we're going to visit while we wait. Because, if somebody catches your coffee, well, that just ruins your whole day, And so he says, And he says, but before we make our coffee, we remembered your new metric. He says, it's day 1 of the sprint. And we had some sprint planning late yesterday afternoon. So we don't actually have any code to commit yet for this sprint. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to go into last sprint, and I'm going to open something up, and I'm going to put a simple little comment in with the letter A. And he goes, I like A. It's the start of the alphabet. Don't you like it? Right? And I'm like, oh my God, And so not sure what to say, kind of wanted it to play out to see what happened. And he said, and so after that happens, he goes, I'm going to commit. And he goes, that's 1. And then he said, and so we're going to go and we're going to make our coffee. And he said, and, when we get back from coffee, he goes, my friend here is going to open up the code. And he goes, you're going to open a code? And the friend goes, no, I'm going to let you go for 2. And so he's like, awesome. Then I'm going to open the code. And he goes, and I'm going to take that A out, and I'm going to go, that's 2. And he goes, do you see how beautiful this is? He goes, we could do this all day long for you. Really, we could. In fact, we're going to. So the moral of the story here is, do we want our developers coding to the metric, or do we want them coding beautiful pieces of software that provide wonderful functionality for customers that really want them? So the second moral of the story is, you can mandate developer metrics, but they're going to meet them every single time. These are brilliant people, and they will meet the metric. It's a form, as the one guy said to me, Ed, he said, it's a form of rebellion, because we talked about this afterwards. I asked him what he felt that he had accomplished, and he said, oh, I think I accomplished so much. The culture in this organization, these developers ate him alive. They chewed him up and they spit him out. He was brand new. He thought he had the ability to just come in and bring in this mandated set of metrics before he walked out, cowering with his tail between his legs, one of the team members, the developer, said, hey, he said, when's the second metric coming? And then a tester very sheepishly said, when will you be doing tester metrics? I'm so excited, right? Not threatening, but very threatening. These developers taught me a lot. They taught me that we can ask them to meet metrics, or we can let them sit back and do what they do best, and that is deliver awesome code, right? So we're going to look at the possibility of a new way of looking at metrics. So there's 4 approaches, and you see our little guy in the lower left-hand corner here. He is, so excited about all of the metrics that he can have. He's just, wringing his little hands in anticipation. You can see he's got his computer screens all the way around him. Make sure that I call you guys to me in case some of you have dropped away. So our first thing that we want to do is kind of throw out everything that we think we know about metrics. And we want to start with first seeking context, because you can put up any metric in the world that you want and you can think that it's fantastic, but if you have no context, you don't have the real story. The team I was working with had their capacity plan. This was something that was required in this organization that I was in, and they were using it to determine how much they could take into sprint. And this was a particular sprint where nobody was going to be out of the office this time. Nobody had excessive meetings. Nobody, had any appointments. And so they were of the mindset that let's take it all in, right? Let's take our highest average velocity and let's just bring that stuff in. They were so excited about it, and they finished their sprint planning, super excited about it. They had a plan. They were sitting in a meeting working on the design, and the first developer went, oh man, my throat. Anybody got a cough drop, And it was about another hour later, he went home very ill. And then the next developer went home ill, and the next, and the next, and the next. At the end of the sprint, at their sprint review, the Scrum Master actually named the sprint the Devian flu of Sprint 12. They got 12% of their planned work done. And management saw the sprint review and they began to go nuts, and not in a good way. They began to lose it until the developer said, hang on, hang on. He said, I want to show you what we planned and I want to tell you the story. You need some context around this 12% because without it, you're ready to, cut our heads off, fire us. And he said, what you need to understand is not only did we all get sick, some of us made another team sick because we were working with them at the same time. And so it's all about context, right? Seek it first, communicate it left and right. So the next one is to stay flexible. So we want to try to stay flexible. And when we try to stay flexible and we start talking about metrics in an organization, a lot of times management and I'll say people that love metrics are like, we must have all the metrics, all of them, and they're like, now, right? And somebody on the sidelines is, but they don't all have value, and they're like, but we must have them. And so what are you going to do with them, right? They become either a battering ram or they become the reason for, an attaboy. And what's the point, right? What is the point of all of that? You've got somebody that's crunching numbers. You've got somebody that's trying to build reports that pull the right data out at the right time. But that data doesn't tell us everything we need to know. So if we talk about data, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about it right now. Let's talk about the fact that if your organization is intent on gathering metrics, start by pulling in all of the data that's available, everything. And I'm not talking about just what comes out of the tool. I'm talking about, is the team in retrospective? Is the team in retrospective coming out and saying, this is something that we feel we need to work on this sprint, and it's to help us be a better team, right? So look for those things. Is the team coming out of retrospective or going into retrospective? Like one team I heard one time, I was walking behind and these 2 developers came out and one goes, what are you doing this afternoon? He goes, oh, it's my team's retrospective. And he goes, so what are you going to do? And he goes, oh, dude, it's really it's no problem. It's a piece of cake. He goes, I just have the same 2 stickies that I use every single time. He goes, and I bring them. He goes, the Scrum Master doesn't care. So, we talk about it, we gripe about it, nothing happens. It's 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back, but, okay. Is that what's happening in our organizations? Are our teams coming to retrospective as though it really truly is a sacred event that can help them become better? Or are they looking at it as a mundane task that you have to check the box with? So one thing, if you do nothing else tonight, if you take nothing away, take away this piece, and that is lose, abandon, punitive approaches to metrics. And when someone wants to add a punitive approach or an outcome to a metric that they see, pounce on them. Pounce on them with, you know, the heart of a Scrum Master, the heart of a coach that says, there's a story here. Let's go find out what it is, right? So let's talk next about our beloved burn down. Everybody loves them, right? So let's run through some of the impacts and the abouts. So we know they're based off of the estimates that a team is given, either time, tasks, story points, depending on the tool that's used and what metric the organization had chosen. But estimates are unique to each team. So there's no really comparing them across teams, which some people are still eager to do. How many of you in your organization still have somebody that would love to compare burn downs across teams? Yeah, there's a couple of us, yeah. It's because they don't understand. It's because they don't understand the true value of it. And they don't understand it can be gamed. So actuals rarely, if ever, match the guideline, especially if you're using story points. There's a big chunk, right, that comes down. It looks like a staircase. They say that it shows how much work is remaining, but that's only if they update the tool. In reality, it only tells part of the story, because we really have no idea how much value is being delivered. Are we delivering value, or are we just going down the list of a backlog of stories that doesn't have any value yet? It hasn't been put together with enough other stories to provide some value. So can it indicate that the team is having to take on more during sprint? Or maybe it's just indicating the team forgot to include something in sprint planning. We don't know. It looks the same on the burn down. It could be the flaming piece of paper that the manager came flying in with and said, you have to do this. Or it could be, oh, we can't do this story unless we do that story. It has an anti-value in that it can be gamed. One way I've seen this gamed is the team decided to reflect tasks at the point of the axis. And they got to creating tasks that frankly didn't need to be created. The metric that they were trying to meet was number of tasks per story. Product ownership wanted to see at least 5 tasks per story. Got it, no problem. So instead of update code with blah, 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 they created 8 tasks. Find the code to update. Find the spot in the code to update. I'm not kidding, this is real. Schedule the meeting to discuss the best way to update. Revise the meeting to add the WebEx in the meeting invite and resend. I honestly was surprised they didn't put resend as the 5th one. Meet with the other devs, discuss the best way to update the code, document the best way, and then finally, the task that it could have been, update the code with blah, blah, blah. So they're going to game them. You give them an opportunity, back them into a corner, they will figure a creative way out of that corner. So how many ways have you seen a burn down gamed? Anybody seen something that they want to share?
Well, I'll do one, but it's only because when I started doing this many, many years ago, I wanted to be anal. And I was wondering, we had a bunch of teams and I had a couple and some other guys had theirs. And then another one who became our manager had his. And then we swapped teams around. And then over a period of time, my buddy and I, like, why is his team doing so well? Because they dropped as soon as they left from us. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to look at the last release we did. And I just went and looked at all the metrics and I averaged them out. And I realized that we'll just say he's flying and he's got these different people and I was kind of steady. And so I just talked to him and said, yeah, it's really interesting. Your metrics are just flying compared to what we had. And then, kind of guilt just came up to him. He says, well, we kind of did a template and just mirrored everything that we've done before. I was just like, oh, okay.
Nice. Yeah.
So it was fun. We caught him red-faced and red-handed.
Nice.
Excellent.
Not that I usually like to do that.
So one more story, and we'll bring you to the board about the burn down. My favorite story about the burn down. It was sprint 7, and each day I met with the team at their daily scrum, and I asked how they were doing as I listened to very mundane daily scrum. It didn't sound like it was much of an update at all. I was a very new Scrum Master at that point, and I wasn't seeing the burn down move at all. Yet every day they assured me, oh no, we're making progress, but the burn down didn't move. And the next day it was the same thing over. It came time to have our retrospective, and the team shared with me that they didn't know Jira, which was the new tool, a mandated thing. And the assumption was made, all developers know Jira. Turned out nobody on my team knew Jira. So I had to teach them how to update the tool, how to do what they needed to do. I wrote a procedure, I did everything. But what I didn't do is I did not wrap change management around it. And I did not ask how they would do it. I did not invite them to be part of the change. So I showed them again, still naive, didn't invite them to be part of the change, but the same behaviors continued. And so sprint 8 ended off looking like sprint 7, and sprint 7 or sprint 9 looked like sprint 8. And at the end of that, I decided, okay, God, I got pulled into the senior manager's office. What's going on with your team? They're not doing any work, blah, 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 And so I brought this up each time in the retro, and I talked with the team, and I got met with like a crap ton of, we'll do better, Karen. And in sprint 9, I finally said, what is it that you need, right? That probably should have been the first question, but what do you need? And they agreed that they needed some kind of reminder. And I said, and the daily Scrum reminder of, hey, this is still our burn down. It's not burning down, it's not reminder enough. And they said, no, we need a calendar reminder. So I said, okay, great. So I set a calendar reminder. What time, guys? They said 4:15. What does it need to say, guys? It needs to say, just update your burn down. Okay, great. Update the tool, update the burn down. That's what I put. Set it up. Sprint 10 started off with a bang. That's their sprint 10 burn down. It was beautiful, right? We're on frame 9, and call you back to me. Beautiful burn down. I was like, oh my God, you guys, this is so good. So I congratulated the team. I asked what their success was in the retrospective. I said, how did you manage to burn it down so beautifully? Was it your estimates? Had you done a great job on estimates? Still this new perky Scrum Master. And the reply was, oh, no, it was the reminder. And I said, really? The reminder helped you remember to update the tool? Oh yeah, totally helped us. Now we had to do a little bit of calculation to figure out how much to burn it down each day so that it looked good for you. But yeah, no, it's gorgeous, isn't it? And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, so how much work got done? And they're like, we're kind of stuck. So how much work got done? Not a lot. Really? Really? So again, give them a metric, they'll meet it. Let's talk about the burn down's brother, the burn up. So the burn up, what do you know about the burn up? Tell me a little bit about it. Here's some people calling things out. Who's using the burnout?
You need a parallel line, not parallel, but you need a second line to show how scope changes over time. Okay. Along with your burn up.
Okay. So it can show a clear increase in scope, or is it just that the team finally got around to estimating properly and decomposing the feature or the epic? Was it really scope creep, or is it, no, this is how large it really was when we committed to it. We just didn't know it was that big. It might have been something that was forgotten in the initial scoping. We need this to do that.
Sort of doesn't matter. We need to know either way.
We do. Yeah, we do. Can it show how much has been delivered? Sure. But it's really only showing amount. It's not showing value. Can the customer use what's been delivered? Was the backlog organized in such a way that we can show a delivery of a whole slice of functionality? These are all the things that we don't know from looking at a burn up. If our Debian flu had added their 12% to the project burn up, it might have raised the blood pressure of a new manager. So what value do these really have? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, if they're working on epics, then you have a presumption that there's a value in there, right? If you're just someone outside manager or whatever looking at it, and then you have a presumption that there's a potential target to release that. And I'm hoping I'm thinking of the same one as you. So those are kind of what I see. The value is if you see scope change, then you can ask questions, right? Hey, what is going on here? And as you say, oh yeah, we weren't able to, or we didn't foresee things coming into our sprints.
Yeah, but by itself, I don't find this metric valuable without some conversation. I think you have to have conversation with any of these. The problem is that many of the people looking at these types of metrics are not there to have the conversation. They're there to look at the metric and glean what they can from it. That's the problem. So let's move then into talk a little bit about their cousin, the cumulative flow as a metric. So how many of you are using cumulative flow? Raise your hand if you are. Or shake your head yes. Okay. It's also based off of tasks or backlog or story points. If it's based off of tasks, then it's really based off of the team's commitment to create them. You can show scope creep, yeah, or perhaps it's just indicating that the team is being asked to add things to the sprint, or maybe the team just forgot to task. Maybe they forgot to add something in sprint planning. Like I mentioned before, perhaps they're finally decomposing an epic and it was larger than they thought. By itself, it does not tell us what we need to know. Deployed, great. What did they get? Can they use it? What was deployed? Are we waiting for another 3 or 4 releases until they can use it? So by itself, it can't offer the value that we hope that it can. I've actually seen POs, so how can it be gamed? I've seen POs add stories or tasks for the decisions that they have to make into the backlog. This speaks to a different issue. One particular PO said, I'm trying to bring some visibility into the work that I have to do. So used properly, explained, a conversation held over it, awesome. Just sent out like it is, I don't find the value in it.
What was her reason for that?
Pardon?
I understand the concept of visibility, but from the PO, what was her reason for that? What was her value?
His value was that he wanted to make sure that people knew that his work meant something too.
Okay.
His words, not mine. So how about we move into that Vixen velocity? You gotta love her, right? She's actually one of my favorite metrics to screw around with and to have conversations about, because I look at like team report your plan versus your actuals, right? Okay, great. So at the end of the day, if you look at the one that we're looking at here, they planned 20, they achieved 15. Do we know why? We don't know why. This document doesn't tell them why. This document also doesn't tell us whether or not there's stretch stories in here. Did they abandon something that they were working on? Did they take stretch stories in too soon before they were done? That's an anti-pattern that a lot of teams do. They plan here's our 8 stories that we're going to take in, and here's our 3. Drag them into sprint now so we don't forget about them, instead of leaving them at the top of the backlog, right? So if they do that and we pull them all into sprint, you can't really tell if they bailed on the first commitment, started on the stretch stories. You can't tell what value got delivered. You can't tell if it was 20 points of technical debt. You can't tell if you're an organization that points their bugs, and we don't need to get into that argument tonight, but we're probably evenly split down the Zoom call. Audiences usually are. But if you do point your bugs, how do you know that this wasn't all bugs? And if you don't point your bugs, how do you know that you weren't working on bugs and that's why you couldn't get the last 5, right? You don't know if work was swapped out based on the burn down, or excuse me, the velocity. And delivered is the relative term. We have no idea what it was that those 20 points made up just by this report itself. When I talk with managers about this, I tell them your metric is only an invitation to walk through the door to a conversation. That is all your metric is for. So sure, take your hard copy or your soft copy, print it out, write your questions down. What do you want to know from the team? What was this 20 points? What was the 15 that actually got delivered? Can they use it? Is it waiting for something else? All of those questions. Any questions so far? Am I shattering your illusion of metrics? I got some no's. Okay, good, good. Am I sounding like negative Nelly? Yes.
Can I have an observation? It's interesting that the metrics that we're sharing right now have really a lot to do with the team metrics. You know, and I think there's this disconnect between what the team delivers and the true value that's being delivered from what the team is working on. So being that the features, the product itself.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's this focus on the team itself and what they're delivering. And there's you may have already read it, and people on this book out there, From Project to Product by Mick Hurston. And he, you know, has all his metrics in there. But the point of measuring from the value of what actually the customer is getting versus what the team is delivering.
Yeah.
And there's that disconnect from management understanding like how to have that conversation. And just as you mentioned, basically, even those metrics, but it's all about having a conversation, but it's measuring the right thing and having those right discussions on what we're measuring, I think is really what I'm observing, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, what I like to see, and I've done this in a couple of organizations, I will be doing it in the organization that I'm in now, and that is, instead of looking at velocity, let's build something that says, what were those 20 points? What did you deliver? Are you 30% closer to the end of a feature? Did you deliver an entire feature there? Tell us what it was. But I also like the idea of having them show, instead of their story points, having them show what the value was that they delivered, the value points that the business assigned. And we were able to deliver this much this time.
So Karen, so are you talking about day to day when they look at those charts? Because ultimately, if we're doing things right and doing a demo or show and tell, then that's the right place to ask these questions, because you see the value, right? So yeah. I'm presuming you're actually talking about day to day where you can't really understand what the value is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at it from the perspective of, in the user story, capture what is the business value itself. But it means the organization has to declare a method for capturing business value, right? They have to determine what is value. You know, one being, yeah, if we never get this, it's probably okay. And, you know, a 10 or a 100 being, we cannot live without this, you know. Business teams, I like to use the Fibonacci series with them so that they can help the team understand in terms of, if this is a 1-point story, it may not be something that we need to do right away. It may be something the team needs to do, But from a business perspective, it may also not be something that's super important. But a 1-point story might also be a 100 from the business. We just don't know.
So I'm finishing up at a place. It's a healthcare place, and most of this stuff is I deem it as valueless. It's basically a lot of doctors asking for this and that, and I'm like, well, what is the value? Well, they just want it. And then it's back and forth. So I've been kind of guiding them how to start thinking in terms of value, but it's very hard in this type of environment to even determine what value is from the customer. And then the developers and teams are trying to figure it out themselves. Like, no one seems to have a clue.
Yeah, no, you're right. So we can talk about escaped defects. We're going to do bug counts, but having 6 bugs that are pixelation issues is nothing compared to 1 bug that's a showstopper. So I don't like this particular report because it depends on a few things. What is the org's definition of a bug? What is the org's definition of when is a bug? When did it come to life? What is their perspective on severity? Are they looking, for these? Are they looking to pay attention to the severity? Or why don't we have a severity report? Something like that. The value that I see from this report is Sesame Street's count. He's really happy because you're counting him, and that's it. So there's your value from it.
Are there actually organizations that are counting defects and regardless of P1, P2, P3,
yes,
regardless of severity?
Yes.
That's sad.
It's very sad. Some of my state clients still do. Yeah. To me, it's sad and it's a waste of time, but technical debt, right? That depends again on the organization's position on technical debt and the product owner's position on technical debt. I had probably the most frightening conversation with an organization. I was a new Scrum Master, new-ish. I think it was my 2nd Scrum Master gig. And I liked the concept about tracking this one. However, when I went to work for this organization during our first sprint planning, I noticed that all of the stories were labeled with tech debt. And so I said to the team, I said, wow, I wonder when you're going to bring in some stories that are new functionality. And they went, oh, not till next year. This is the year of tech debt. This is what our sprints are going to look like for the next 9 months. And I was like, did you just say year of tech debt? And they were like, yeah, year of tech debt. A few months ago, the CIO negotiated it with the business. And I'm thinking, if I were the business, there's no way, at the end of that. So November came and I was like, 1 more month of tech debt, the year of tech debt, we're almost done. Oh my God, it's so exciting, right? And they were like, oh, did you hear the news? And I'm like, no. And they're like, the CIO is meeting today with the business to ask for another year of tech debt. Right, no way, right? So it's crazy, but it happens, So there's a part of me that wants us to just stop what we're doing, right? And let's take a look at looking at things differently, like throw everything out the window about metrics. And what if instead we listen to the heartbeat of the Agile founding fathers and we play with some metrics that we've heard about, we play with some things that we already know. I want to actually kind of skip ahead. Because we're running out of time, that I really want you guys to do this exercise. So I'm going to race through. So let me move here, call y'all to me. I've had questions asked by manager of, can't we just use cycle time, right? We could track the developers, we could track the testers, we could track the PO, and then we could act accordingly. Okay, stop, you just said and act accordingly, which means that you're gearing up your baseball bat to start going after somebody because they held it too long in the cycle, and we have no idea why they held it too long in the cycle. Did they hold it too long in the cycle? Maybe the testing environment wasn't available for a day. Maybe something happened, right? Craziest story was I had somebody that passed away at work and had a massive heart attack, died right there at work. Why didn't he get his work done? I'm sorry, what? This was a serious question. So do I want to track testers? Do I want to track POs? Do I want to track? No, I don't want to track them. What I want to track, and I want organizations to start to think about, is how long does it take us to get something out the door into the hands of the customer from the moment that we thought about it and it got prioritized to work on. So from the moment that we prioritize it and we begin work on it, now let's track that thing and let's see how long it takes us to get it out and make a game of it, right? Let's have some fun with this.
You may want to track your developers who die.
Yeah, right. But I think those are kind of easy to track,
Sweep them under the table.
David, if that's one of your regular metrics that you're tracking, something is very wrong with your business.
Right? Thank you.
They were doing very well.
Right. Yeah. So another one that was asked by manager, how about let's track our tags and our labels utilization in the tool. Please tell me what value this has. And do you really want your developers tagging everything, or would you rather pay a Scrum Master to go in and tag everything afterwards, or the product owner to go and tag everything afterwards? This has, to me, this has zero value. I can be developing a team as a Scrum Master. They can be coding, testers can be testing, and you want me to go in and count labels on stories? No, and how do you know if you've missed one? How do you know? Unless you're looking at every single story and every single tag. It's like, who's going to do that? If you're signing up to do it, awesome. Another one, his response was, well, shoot, okay, so how about updates and adherence to the definition of done? My response to that is, that sounds great, but do we want them to be meaningful updates? Because I can tell you a story about a developer who went to get a cup of coffee. Right? So meaningful updates, sure. Let's celebrate those, And then the last one, schedule improvements. Now this is one of my favorites. Let's do that, sure. You've just become an Agile organization. You have your first project. So what are we going to track it against? Oh, let's track it against a waterfall project. That makes sense. Sure, we'll track it against a waterfall project. We'll check schedule improvements because we haven't delivered the whole thing, but we've actually delivered something, and you go on and on and on. And do you have one of exact size? Well, no, but we have this other one that we could do. It was pretty big. We could divide it in half. What? And I'm like, this is kind of like, measuring apples to wildebeests. It doesn't work, So we need to think about a new way of thinking. We want to look at the Agile Manifesto. So this is going to give us a few minutes to get into here. I'm going to do a quick share screen. You will get this exercise at the end of this, so you don't have to worry about not being able to finish it. So room 1, you'll click here. Let me unhide the rooms. I don't know how many rooms we need. Rob, how many people do we have?
So currently I have roughly 3 people per breakout room at 8 rooms.
Okay, let's not do that.
Room 1 will have 4.
Let's give them in breakout rooms of 5 or 6, okay?
5 or 6, okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So our directions, go in, read your directions first. You're going to choose somebody that you will listen to their company as the example. These dots are movable. You're going to read the Agile principles. You're going to talk about where are they on number 1. So producing early, grab 1, listen to the person. You need somebody that's going to move the dots in the room. Listen to the person's example. If they say we're at a 0, we're not doing that, you can put it there, okay? Bring it back up. At the end of it all, you're going to move over to here, to the right, and you'll have an opportunity to brainstorm for and with the person whose company is being used as an example. What can you do with that team to help them improve on each of these things? So for example, welcoming change, help the team learn how to adopt a growth mindset. So that's one thing. Daily business collaboration, schedule a time that's agreeable to all for a working session with both devs and business. And so I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to go to where the room assignments are. And that is frame 21. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. I know. There's never enough time. You could probably spend easily an hour on that exercise. So that's the bad news, is there wasn't enough time to do the whole thing. The good news is you all get a copy of it.
Cool.
So Rob is putting the .rtb into the chat. He's also putting in a list of other types of Agile metrics. So if you have an organizational management structure that's just banging the proverbial give me metrics drum, there are some better Agile metrics to consider. And so some things like how many of your people were trained in Agile? There's one thing, right? How many of your teams were trained and are using, right? And so it's, and how are they using? And you can even take each Agile practice and bust it apart into a spider diagram. How are they doing? Are they refining, on time? Are they spending the time that they need to in retrospective? Are they having positive things come out of it? Are they learning? There's some really other great things that you can do with this. So anyway, I wanted to call you all back because I want to be respectful of the 7 o'clock time. I want to thank you so much for allowing me the privilege of spending some time with you and sharing some of the things that make me crazy inside, and so graciously welcoming me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Susan, Cesar, for being the host, and thank you, Robert, for producing for me. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
What's the best way to connect with you?
I will put my contact in the chat. Okay.
It was great to have a conversation about how counterproductive metrics are.
I know, right?
Isn't it so validating?
Lift us up, Ron. Lift us up, buddy. Lift us up.
And
David,
when
did the
you
same.
get a copy of the slides, the screens, I was able to see it since I'm on my phone. So just curious if someone could email it to me.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, this is Maura. I was on my phone, and so I was wondering if someone could email me the screenshots of the exercise. I didn't see it in the chat or where it was at.
Oh, yeah, Rob has, scroll up a little bit more. It's in there. At 6:58, he sent it. Both of them.
I'm not seeing it.
Okay, I'll go ahead and send them to you. I see your email in there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mara.
Did you say that was in the chat?
Yeah, it's in the chat. Rob, can you pop them in there again?
And Prashant, did you have a question?
No, I didn't have any questions. So thank you very much. It was very, it was a good learning experience for me.
Good, awesome.
It's very cathartic. Thank you. Go ahead, JJ.
Thanks.
All right, did everybody get those?
Thanks.
I'll send them to you, Susan, so that you can send them out if people didn't get them and are asking. Okay.
Yeah, I can't see them in the chat. Okay.
So what we can do, Karen, if you want to send a video file from this recording, we can put this up on YouTube. I'll share it with